Welcome back to Incremental, the continuous improvement podcast. This is episode 131 and is our practice episode where we talk about lean improvements made throughout the week and tie them back to lean principles. My name is Uriel Eisen from Austere Manufacturing and Arda.
And I'm Devin Bedoni of Like & Precision. And our quote for this week: if you don't understand how to run an efficient operation, new machinery will just give you new problems of operation and maintenance. The sure way to increase productivity is to better administrate man and machine. From Edward Deming.
Good old Deming.
Good old.
I find some of his stuff a little idealistic.
For sure.
But I guess that's the whole point of this podcast.
Yeah, no. Isn't it all of it?
Well, I guess that is to say that sometimes buying a new piece of equipment, though you are just going to have new problems, you are going to have new problems while also being more profitable. So, like,
true.
But I would say most people's focus is way skewed toward equipment and not efficient administration.
Yeah. I mean, right. The reality exists somewhere in the middle here. I think there's also like a distinction to be made here between a growing business and a more of a steady state business, where
that's a great point.
Right. If you're a growing business, yes, you need to buy more equipment to take on new work, whether that's capacity or capability.
Yeah. If
you are Ford and you are having production problems, just buying more equipment to solve the problem is, I think,
a good point.
I think that's what he's speaking to here. Less to us.
Yeah. Right.
So everybody listening, go buy more machines.
Right. That said, I was joking when I was talking to the folks at the Yamazin booth at IMTS.
Yeah.
Like, I'm always threatening to buy another machine, and then we just like figure out how to get more out of it. And that is through administration.
Yeah.
And just, I don't know.
Process development.
And just, not to say there isn't some cap on that, but. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. We should.
Some improvements.
Jump into them.
Yeah.
I guess I already mentioned this one, the last, but we made a buffer area for our setup carts.
Sounds like the best kind of improvement. Like,
it was
5 minutes.
Made of masking
$1. Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah.
And significantly impactful to the whole organization.
Significantly impactful. Yeah.
That's wild.
The effect of visibility never ceases to amaze me.
Oh man. Yeah. Got to get back in my shop and crank on that. Okay. So, Kyle's been, as I mentioned, visiting customers and doing some installs. So it's always super helpful to, I don't know, we always get like great ideas for new features.
Yeah.
One of which was the ability to flag an item when you add it to the cart. And it's sort of a blunt, I don't know, tool in that you just see a flag and who flagged it. And so it doesn't have any notes or anything associated with it yet.
Sure. Yeah.
But they just wanted something where, like, if somehow a card got missed or something and someone notices that something is low and then adds it to the cart, they want to be like, hey, expedite this. So we added that.
Good old expedite.
Yeah. That was the improvement.
Turns out it's still a thing.
Yeah. Yeah, that said, and I think I mentioned this on the podcast, I was talking to someone who built a few MRPs, WMSs, so many acronyms, warehouse management systems.
And XYZ?
Yeah, G52 point, no, 54.1. Anyway, so he was saying, like, for a command and control style system to change the plan, like to do expediting, is a huge lift. Walking up to a bin and switching two cards, and anytime I do it, I feel like a failure. Like, I should resize my Kanbans or read another book or something, right? Like, you know.
I feel, on the other hand, like a genius every time I do that.
Well, you have a better life. So that's just so low friction, right? So expediting with Kanban is still quite.
Yes.
Time. It's still, you should fix the problem, but.
You should fix the problem. And I think really what I was just trying to make a joke about is that, like, the theoretical perfect,
hard to get there
world just doesn't exist. And so there will always be something So
Yeah.
probably build it into your system.
Okay, let me ask you this. Do you think building tools for having, like, supporting failure, do you know what I mean? Like, that is a crutch. We're building in a crutch to the product. Is that good or bad?
I think it comes from a point of perspective, right? Like if you are building that because you think it's the solution, that's a problem. If you are building that as a solution for for this moment with an eye to further improvement down the line, I think that's fine.
What if we had a flag across the product where when you click it, it would ask you could add a note, and then you could ask like for why it happened, like why the issue happened, and then you could sort of like review a log, because then you'd be capturing potential improvement. Anyway, yeah, that was the improvement.
Yeah, cool. Along with making our setup cart buffer, we flipped the direction of our programming, like our programmed job queue board.
Okay.
And this was a funny devil in the details moment, right? But initially when we planned out this whole system, we were like, okay, we'll put the board over here by the saw. It will face the job floor so that the shop floor. So the shop will see when there's a program available.
Okay.
Which is push.
Right. Quintessential textbook.
Textbook push. And so when we created the the setup cart buffer, we realized the trigger there for the shop floor is an empty cart, or an empty space.
Right.
Not seeing that there's a job available. And when there's an empty space, the trigger is fill that space, go to the board and get the next job. And simultaneously, that becomes the trigger to the programmer. Now you have an empty spot on your board. Whereas before, me, the programmer, I couldn't see the board because it was facing the shop floor.
Fascinating.
Devil in the details. That happens to be where my desk is because it's where it makes sense for other reasons.
Yeah.
And so now everybody has the visibility that they need to do the work that they need to do.
That's so interesting. It's such a good, like, flipping where the information flows.
Yeah.
Is what happens when you flip from push to pull.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And it just blows my mind that literally turning a whiteboard around can have like so much impact. It's terrifying too, right? Because it's like, how many things in the shop are we doing so wrong that could be fixed by turning something around or whatever?
Yeah. That's very cool.
Anyhow.
I mean, those are like the dream improvements,
That's
right?
true. Yeah. $0.
$0 and significant impact.
Yeah.
It's a little harder, but I still need to flip my machine. I'm going to install it backwards in the new shop just so
you can have the opportunity to flip it.
Oh, we did sign a lease on a new shop. I guess that's news. Yeah. I don't know if it will be an improvement. We'll find out. No, it will be very significant in a lot of ways. I added a named view in Fusion 360. I finally did the thing, stop and fix.
Yes.
You know when you have some weird assembly with weird angles, but there's one that's like where you want to be looking at it from to do like some sketching.
Yeah.
Turns out you can create a named view in Fusion. You know, you define some face or something, and then you create a named view, and then you can click on it in the left side of the screen and go back to it whenever you want. So that was it.
Is this in a template?
That would be delightful. No, it is. Oh man, actually, I don't know why this isn't on here. I somehow didn't realize this, but all of our cam buckle products essentially have the same assembly angles and challenges.
Yeah.
And so we're releasing a new product, and so I had to make a new assembly fixture. And then I realized I could just model like basically most of the challenging parts as modular, right? Like, and then have like dovetail, almost like lathe tooling post.
Yeah, like quick change tooling.
Yeah, so now I have those on all the moving elements. And so you have 3 inserts, one that carries the cam, one that carries the body, and then there's an insert that supports the buckle to bring it to the right height so that you can put it in a standard press.
Yeah.
And the spring injector will be standard, and the I'm going to build a pin positioner so that as you press the pin, it's one motion in the press, all happens in the press, and all of that work of modeling should be fairly universal across that whole product family, which is
exciting.
Very exciting. Yeah, I just printed off the first one last night.
Nice.
It doesn't work. Yeah, there's just some like clearance issues and modeling problems. So,
sure.
Yeah.
Very cool. So I turned that board around, the programmed job board.
Yeah.
And in the past, it was just like a lane for each machine that went the full width of the board.
Okay.
So you could fill up to whatever the width of the board in jobs. But now we have another person starting to program jobs, which is very exciting.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Internal or someone new?
Internal. Yeah.
Oh, cool.
And so we needed a way to highlight who was working on what, so that you wouldn't think that something was triggered and go to work on the same sort of lane, and then double your work unnecessarily. So I took up half the board for assignment columns for each person who's currently programming. And then I limited the slots, like the columns for finished programs, to 2. So that there's less sort of mental juggling to think through, like how many are lined up on each machine. And I think it's really going to end up being 1. That's just kind of like there's 1 in the queue, there's 1 set up. And when the queue gets empty,
that's so cool.
When the queue gets emptied, you work on the next one.
Damn.
Yeah. So that was, again, simple, cool.
Simple, super cool. I added a parametric stock nudge to our gripper program. In making these new parts, I realized, I don't know, there's been a lot of little things that have been annoying. Like, because I started with a sort of macros from someone else, and when I first started, I didn't really have the confidence or something to just start from scratch.
Yeah. So
there's a lot of sort of legacy stuff in there. And that amounted to not having, so I sort of rethought the whole gripper approach in terms of perspective. So previously I'd been thinking about it from the perspective of the part I wanted to machine. What I started to realize is that as we release new products, we are actually focused on standardized trays because we don't want to just increase the number of stock sizes we keep on hand.
Yeah. Or trays, they take up a ton of space. Yeah,
and we're making buckles for standard width webbing, so they typically are very similar sizes.
Yeah,
and so the more standard aspect of the whole program is actually being more like tray centric.
Yeah,
and what ends up getting run on the vise is the thing that's changing.
Right,
but the rest isn't really. And so
yeah, like you could.
I built a parametric tray model in Fusion, where the parameters directly plug into the macro programs that run the gripper, so that when you want a new stock size, it's easy to just plug all that stuff in, and then tried to pull more and more of the tweaks that I do to get something actually running properly into the main program, so that it can just get set
into the part program.
No, into
the gripper main program.
Into like the gripper main program.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm not settled on this. Like, I don't feel like I have it cracked yet.
Yeah.
But yeah, just a little improvement. So stock nudge. That is to make sure that the stock is centered on the vise.
Yeah.
Because when the gripper fingers open, if it sort of differentially sticks to one of the fingers, like more than the other, because they're light parts, pulls it off center. So we nudge it back to the middle. And that was something I would then have to like go into the program to get the nudge. Because it wasn't parametrically driven. If you changed your stock size, so now I want to program something on a different stock size.
Yeah.
You have to go change the nudge. It was hard coded. So now we already know the stock size, and we know the inside dimension of the gripper finger.
Yeah.
Those are known. And so now we can just calculate the nudge.
And so this is parametric in the gripper main program, not in CAM.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
If anybody knows if you can drive cam operations from the like design parameters table, that would be interesting.
If you can drive cam parameters.
Yeah. I don't know if that's a thing. But if you can pull in variables from the design table.
Interesting.
Shoot us a note. I doubt you can, but more whiteboard fun. Moved our material order queue board to a smaller whiteboard. It was like a massive one.
Sorry, you moved your what?
The material ordering portion of our job management system, our XYZ, to a smaller board.
Your JMS?
Yeah, JMS. And I'm going to just roll one other into that because it's pretty much the same thing. We kept having this funny thing. So we have like a Kamishibai board is on the back of a whiteboard.
Okay.
On the front of that whiteboard was our material ordering.
Uh-huh.
And then we had our to-do list on the back of one whiteboard. And on the front of that board was our stock on hand job queue.
Okay.
And so like when we would have a scrum, there was this weird, just like crazy dance of like spinning whiteboards around.
Yeah.
You know where this is going. Anyway, so I moved the material ordering board to a smaller board. It's got nothing on the back. And then I moved the material on hand board to a different board that has nothing on the back. And then I combined the Kamishibai board with the to-do list board.
That fits.
Yeah. And that is no longer in the like central
Very
management system.
Wow.
Like, so much whiteboard fun.
That's awesome. Yeah. Okay, this is not really it was it led to an improvement, but Kyle witnessed an employee walk up to looking for a part to build a thing, different company, and staring at a shelf of those parts, but they were all allocated to a different build. And so he couldn't use them. And Kai was like, it just seemed like such a nightmare. Like, you're just trying to do your job and you can't use, like, it's like, oh, I need a pen. Oh, there's a pen. No, don't use that pen. Go find a different pen. And the solution
This was in your system allocated to a different build?
No, this is switching over to Kanban.
Okay.
Once it's so a lot of people, harkening back to our last episode, they build one, whatever, boat.
Yeah.
And then another customer comes and now they're building two boats. They do the same process twice. So they go like, okay, well, what do I need to build the boat? And then they order it and then they take it and put it on a shelf. Turns out you have your go-to items. It would be like allocating, cutting tools to a specific job for you. Yeah. Where it is the tempting thing to do at the beginning. And then at some point you're like, nope, this is a standard thing. Or envelopes, and it just solves a ton of problems to have a standard stock. And then if one is damaged, you can toss it in the trash, and there isn't this whole dance of like, well, I stole it from a different job, so now we need to make sure it gets ordered.
And that's why I couldn't pay my taxes, because that envelope was gone.
Exactly.
Sorry.
Yeah, there were other envelopes. Anyway, that was just kind of funny. The improvement it led to was switching to Kanban.
Ah, yes. Classic improvement.
Yeah.
Nice. Along with the board, more whiteboard fun. Uh-huh. One of the things that was on the back of our queuing board was our standard meeting template.
Okay.
And so I would like literally like read I would read an item from the list and then I'd turn the board around. We'd talk about it. And then I'd turn it back around.
Okay. Yeah.
Sorry. So I moved that to Airtable.
This is very,
the real improvement, that was helpful. The real improvement was we added reviewing the Kamishibai board to the standard meeting.
Oh, cool.
Because there's no real trigger in a day to go look at that except like, hey, you have downtime.
I see.
Turns out we don't have much downtime.
Right.
So we're going to do that as a standard part of our morning meeting. And then we, instead of just like being like, okay, we're done, break, we added a 3S as the break for the end of the meeting, because we have struggled greatly with implementing 3S effectively. And in the past, we had people arrive at highly variable times.
Okay.
Now everybody's pretty punctual, and so we can have a meeting pretty routinely at a reasonable time. And so far, it's only been a week, but so far this is working well.
Very cool.
Yeah.
I will admit we've been slipping with 3S.
Yeah. You better just write it down.
I think I just need to put in an SOP. And okay, so all joking aside with your ridiculous dance with the whiteboard,
Yeah.
I feel like the crazy thing is you've been running a business for a while now, and two things. One is simple low-hanging fruit is still like everywhere in everyone's business. Two is like there's a lot of stuff like that that's just slightly less visible.
Yeah.
And which is the terrifying part. Not terrifying. It's just like it's worth noting because I think
It's
back to the
illuminating.
quote at the top.
Yeah.
It pays to really think about all those things.
Yeah.
Like they're so simple, waste so much time.
Yeah.
A dumb dance. Do it all the time. Anyway, okay, so I had two things. We are switching some of our stuff to anodize, which is less forgiving than paint for sure, which has been kind of a cool like kick in the pants to refine some of our tool paths that have been giving us some problems.
Yeah.
One of them of note was a burr that would come up on the cam of the 3/4 cam on two corners. And so I kind of was digging into that. And also tool 2, which cuts those two corners, was breaking. Intermittently, very variable. Sometimes it would run for like a month, no problem. Sometimes it would break. I broke 2 in a day.
Interesting.
And I was like, all right, well, I'm fixing that.
Like
So
repairing.
ended up taking the roughing. So this is a great lean lesson. I had changed tools away from our roughing mill previously to save time, like to increase throughput on our cams. And so that had a few effects. One is the tool I chose instead has a 3/4 inch depth of like a flute length.
Yeah.
And so I wasn't roughing as far down. And so when the tool number 2 came in to cut the corner that was like closer to the vise, this is kind of in the weeds, I was hitting some of the
leftover
stock. And I'm not sure why it was variably breaking, because that seems like it should always break or not, but something made that happen. The other effect is that the tool number 4 was wearing out faster, and it does a lot of our finishing. And so it was a much easier way to create scrap.
You were doing this to reduce a tool change?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally misguided, I would say. And then also it made much fluffier chips, and a lot of them. And so like that part specifically sort of struggled with chip evacuation to some extent. So yeah, a lot of wins. I just went back to the roughing tool, brought the top hat kind of down a little further for clearance, good clearance for the to just machine nice looking parts right off the machine instead of leaning on. So the big thing is like the sandblaster was deburring for us.
Yeah.
And now we're eliminating the sandblaster. And so there's just like, you can run, but you cannot hide. Yeah, there's nowhere to hide. So it's been cool. It's like, let's fix all the problems with the tool paths. So
awesome.
Yep.
Right on. Did some updating templates and paperless parts over the last couple days.
Ooh.
I, for some reason, was avoiding it. Felt like maybe it was complicated, and then was annoyed about not being able to like get information across to a customer easily.
Okay.
I was like, I'm just going to go look at this. And it turned out to be extremely simple.
That's very cool.
So yeah, now we have better reflection of like, we can better note on our quotes, like finishing operations that we do.
Oh, cool.
It was ambiguous. Like the customer would have it on the print, but I wouldn't necessarily have it on the quote. So it was just kind of like a trust of like, we're going to do it to the print, which you're supposed to do. But anyway, having it on the quote was good. And then also started breaking out I added an operation for proof outs specifically. So the way, again, getting into the weeds, but the way that Paperless had it set up, every operation that you might do, like a mill operation or a lathe or sawing, would have like a setup amount of time and then a run time.
Okay.
And setup would be like once, and run time would be per part.
Yeah.
Simple math. But that didn't really capture, you had to do some mental juggling to be like, how long is the setup going to take? And then how long is the proof out going to take? And those two are not always like aligned with each other. You could have a complicated proof out with a simple setup, or vice versa.
Okay.
And also it doesn't give you a good lever to pull for like, if a repeat job comes back.
No proof out, or minimal anyway.
Yeah. So you're like looking at, if you want to requote for a customer or something, it's, again, you're just kind of like fudging. So I added that in today as an additional standard operation in the template.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is I don't know, a bit of an insight, not really though, is Kanban's trigger work. SOPs are how to do the work. So the improvement has been tying those together more tightly in Arda. So now when you, well, a few things. One is we added tasks, which are essentially the same thing as item, right? So it turns out that like if you have an item like pens from Amazon,
Yeah.
we think about, or I was thinking about that as like, this Kanban is for pens. But no, that Kanban is for the task of buying more pens, right? That's what it triggers. And so the second you're just thinking about like Kanban as triggering work, that work can be sending an invoice. That work can be buying stuff, whatever it is, right? Anything. And so that kind of unified a lot of the systems and interfaces. And so now within an item or a task, there's like a create SOP button. And then when you do that, when you trigger it, you can open the SOP. So it's right there is sort of the goal. We'll see how it plays out. Like, I think that doesn't necessarily solve the problem we talked about last episode of like, will people click that button?
Right.
But I think we start to get much closer, because now in the like internal production dashboard, we can surface the SOPs. So like if you want to know what to run on the mill next, for example, you would be like, okay, well, let me see what's up next. That's the thing. And then the SOP would be there, which could have your prints, could have your like QC sheets, etc. So that was kind of the, I don't know. We'll see. I don't know. It's a whole big section, and
that's a big project to tackle.
Yeah. So I think it will kind of take some time to figure out where that's actually useful.
Yeah. Very cool. But that, again, like always, like with the flag discussion or any of this stuff, I just repeatedly feel that trying it gets you started, and there's no way to get around that sort of.
100%. Could not agree more. Get in the arena.
Yeah. All the things that we've like this SOPs, right? Like we've been talking about SOPs now for a year.
Yep.
Probably. Routinely failing.
Yep.
But I think we've both learned a lot.
Yes.
And have a much clearer idea of how to proceed at this point, at least towards whatever the next failure is.
Totally.
And everybody's better off for it.
Yep.
I mean, I don't know about the listeners, but at least in our two shops, everyone's better off for it.
Hopefully some of that's come across.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, on that note,
I have two more I'll rip through real quick here. I think we covered this one. Rationalize your production. Yeah. Moved some stuff over to Costco online shopping and eating the cost of that $3 because it's way less than the cost of a trip to Costco.
Yes.
Okay. So this gets back to like the conversation about like the power of visual, it's not visual control exactly. It is a visual production space.
Yeah.
So we were at a customer that had a lot of drawer slides of different like
Sure.
left locking, right locking, and then in 2-inch increments in length.
Mm-hmm.
So that ends up with like 32, whatever it is.
A lot of variations.
A lot of variations. And there was just a lot of ambiguity about what we should do with them because they're expensive. They don't use all the sizes all the time, right? Like each build is going to have a different size. And so it's kind of like, okay, do we make it a min 0 item?
Mm-hmm.
And then if you want one for a particular job, you'll order it. But the problem that we keep running into and seeing customers run into, this was a great example of this. These are all min 0 items according to the customer. And then going through the shop, there were a lot of them.
Yeah.
Because the second it's order per job, it's very ambiguous what's going to happen with remnants. If you have damage or if you have a change to the job,
Yeah.
now you're sitting on this thing that's quote unquote quite valuable.
Right.
You know what I mean? And it's like, so they're not going to throw it in the trash. They're going to be like, oh, we'll use it on a future thing. But meanwhile, there's no mechanism to kind of surface the fact that you have them. Also, they go into a spot that is kind of like, oh, if you need this, grab it. And so now some item comes in for repair or a different personal project comes up and someone grabs like one out of a set, right? Or one comes in damaged. And so then they go rummage through the pile that they have and pull whatever. So it's like,
so effectively they have a disorganized inventory that exists without knowing it.
but in theory, on paper, like the goal is to have none.
Yeah.
Right. And it's funny because saying, hey, we don't want to carry this item.
Yeah.
Often what we're seeing just results in actually having more of that item than you would ever like rationally say, let's buy a pair of each, right?
But not in functional quantities.
Yeah, totally. And you don't know they're there and you can't count on them being there. It's a lot of the conversation we had around cutting tools, I think, is like either you want to have this or you don't. And that middle ground is very tempting to be like, well, we spent $100 on this tool and it's unlikely we'll need it again. So it's like, well, throw it away. Well, we kind of want it. So we're just going to toss it in this death drawer. Anyway, so as a first step of like, well, let's do something, Kyle just laid them all out on a shelf and actually marked out in tape a spot for each variant.
Yeah.
And at a glance, you can see which ones they use suddenly. And which ones they have none of, and just like very easily. And instead of having this ambiguous jumble, it suddenly was just like at a glance, you can see what's there. And then within minutes of kind of seeing that, it was much easier to then like pick a course of action, which is like, oh, those are the two sizes we seem to use quite a bit. Let's Kanban those. And then the rest will kind of manage in this non-ideal way, but
yeah,
I guess good enough or something.
Yeah. Very interesting.
Anyway, it is. It's very funny. We have these like long conversations about like that, for example, and it's kind of like it's so in the weeds and doesn't matter, but it's interesting. Like, what are the factors to decide whether to carry something as like we always have this versus not? And there is a line, like we don't have backup CNCs. We've talked about, right? And
right.
But I don't know where that lands exactly.
Yeah.
Bunch of factors.
But if you could crack that code.
I don't even know if we need to crack it. You even need like some shorthand of like.
Yeah. No, I mean like if you had a formula.
Yeah.
Not necessarily like.
I bet that exists.
Maybe.
If anyone knows where that formula exists. Well, so Reloisa is the formula for sizing Kanban loops, it turns out, developed by Bosch. Well, it's called Reloisa.
Is that an acronym?
Yeah, the re is for replenishment, lo is for lotting. So if you only push something to paint once you have 4 Kanbans built up, that would be a lot size. We is withdrawals. So if there's any unplanned withdrawals, not unplanned. If there's big peaks in withdrawals that you know about, kind of like, someone might walk into the room and grab like 50 screws. That would be withdrawal. Reloisa size safety stock.
Huh.
And so you can plug. It's actually kind of interesting to do. I did it for some of our cam buckles just to be like, okay, I'm probably not going to do this for every single one, but like, what does this say? And it took it from being like a very much like system one kind of gut feel, like, yeah, let's do this many, to a recommendation that was about 3 times what we had because in my head, paint should only take about a day.
Yeah.
But actually, if you look at the board at any given time, we're often 5 days out. So stuff that goes up on the board, you're often not going to get it on the assembly station for another 4 days, 4 or 5 days.
Interesting.
And so just plugging that in is like, oh, well, that's why we're constantly like having conversations about what we desperately need to paint.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Interesting.
So actually, did you just Google if there's one for stocked items versus non-stocked?
No, I just looked up Brie Louisa.
Oh. Yeah.
That'll be a fun rabbit hole, maybe.
It's fun it's like spreadsheeting. It's like, who was it? Like modeling, whatever. Financial models are always wrong, sometimes useful. It's great for sensitivity analysis, I think. You start to play with the numbers and you're like,
Right. See where it kind of...
Yeah, if we can drive our replenishment time down,
Yeah.
that has a huge effect. Oh, let's go improve that. Anyway.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah, we've sort of related. We keep... We've been buying lots of extremely expensive military spec fasteners for assemblies that we've been doing. Like $12 washers that are like number 10 washers.
Can you manufacture them?
Well, I mean, theoretically,
anyway.
yes, we could. Like, I think
get certified.
The spec is the part that makes it expensive.
Okay.
Anyway, but we had a similar thing. Like, we end up having like 2 extra just in case.
Right.
And so now we have this like weird collection, which Will is kind of working to tackle, but weird collection of like oddball, extremely expensive, random fasteners. And we're like, how exactly do we handle this? I don't really know a good way. Well, I mean, there are ways, obviously.
Well, I think the thing is the management cost is often way higher than
exactly.
you kind of think. And it's like, let's just inventory them and call it a day.
Or trash. Probably trash.
Yeah, or trash, right. Yeah, damn.
Which is harsh toke, but maybe best. Anyhow.
Yeah. On that note.
Yes. Thank you again. We had a lot of fun. Always have a lot of fun. Thanks for coming along for the ride. You can find me at Lycan_MFG on Instagram, LycanPrecision.com on the internet. And we have a Patreon. Go patronize.
And you can find me at austere_manufacturing on Instagram and austeremfg.com. Also, arta.cards. And that's on Instagram and online. And if you want to find the podcast on Instagram, it is Incremental CI. And we'll be back next week.